I've always hated flying. Not the destination, not the adventure waiting on the other side, but the actual act of being 30,000 feet in the air in a metal tube that somehow defies every instinct that tells me humans weren't meant to soar. My therapist says it's about control. I say it's about common sense. But there I was, seat 12A on flight 447 from San Francisco to New York. My hands already gripping the armrests before we'd even pulled away from the gate. The businessman next to me had already put in his earbuds. It's a clear signal he wanted nothing to do with whoever might be sitting beside him. I didn't blame him. I knew I was about to be that passenger. The safety demonstration began. And I watched with the intensity of someone who actually believed pointing out the exit rows would save me if something went wrong. That's when I first saw her. She was one of 3 flight attendants working our section. And she moved through the aisle with a grace that seemed impossible in the confined space. Her dark hair was pulled back in a neat bun, and when she smiled at passengers, it reached her eyes in a way that suggested she actually enjoyed her job. Her name tag read Maya. I didn't think much of it then. I was too busy calculating the odds of engine failure and mentally reviewing every episode of air disaster documentaries I'd ever watched, wondering why I'd subjected myself to such self-torture. The takeoff was smooth, which should have calmed me, but instead, I found myself waiting for the other shoe to drop. My therapist would have a field day with this metaphor. The plane climbed steadily, and I forced myself to breathe in counts of 4, hold for 7, exhale for 8. It was helping until we hit the first pocket of turbulence. The plane dropped suddenly, but it felt like falling off a cliff. My stomach lurched. My hands went white on the armrests, and I may have made a sound. Not quite a scream, but definitely not the casual, ooh, a little bump noise that normal people make. First time flying, I turned to find Maya crouched in the aisle beside my seat, her hand resting gently on the armrest near mine. Up close, I could see that her eyes were a warm brown, almost amber in the cabin light. And there was a small scar above her left eyebrow that somehow made her more beautiful rather than less. I wish I managed. My voice shakier than I would have liked. I've flown dozens of times. Still terrifies me every single time. She smiled, and it was different from the professional smile she'd given during the safety demonstration. This one was genuine, tinged with something that looked like understanding. I'm Maya, and I'm going to let you in on a secret. I waited, my heart still racing from the turbulence. That bump we just hit. Totally normal. The plane is designed to handle stress that's exponentially greater than what we'll ever encounter on a commercial flight. What you felt was the airplane equivalent of driving over a speed bump. Uncomfortable, but completely safe. Physics says we shouldn't be up here at all, I countered, though I found my death grip on the armrest loosening slightly. Physics is exactly why we're up here, she replied, her smile widening. Bernoulli's principle, lift, thrust, drag deets, all perfectly calculated. You're safer up here than you were driving to the airport. Statistics don't make it feel less scary. No, she agreed, they don't. But maybe a distraction would help? What's your name? It's Jordan. Jordan Reese. Well, Jordan Reese, I'm supposed to start the beverage service in about 10 minutes. But between you and me, I think you could use something now. Coffee? Tea? Something stronger. Water would be great, actually. She disappeared and returned moments later with a bottle of water and a pack of pretzels. As she handed them to me, the plane hit another patch of rough air. This time, I didn't just grip the armrest. My hand shot out instinctively, and somehow it found hers. Maya didn't pull away. Instead, she closed her fingers around mine, her grip firm and steady and completely unafraid. Hey, she said softly, and I forced myself to look at her instead of imagining the plane tearing apart. You're okay. I promise you're okay. This is nothing. Just some choppy air. It'll pass. The turbulence lasted maybe 30 seconds, but Maya didn't let go of my hand until the seatbelt sign turned off. When she finally did release me, I felt the absence of her touch like a physical thing. Thank you, I whispered. That's what I'm here for, she said. But there was something in her voice that suggested she didn't just mean the standard customer service line. I need to get back to work, but I'll check on you, okay? I nodded, not trusting my voice, and watched as she moved down the aisle. Helping other passengers, laughing at someone's joke, completely in her element. I opened my water with shaking hands and tried to focus on anything other than the fact that I could still feel the warmth of her palm against mine. Maya did check on me. Multiple times, actually. Each time she passed my row, she'd pause, make eye contact, and offer a small smile that I found myself looking forward to. During the beverage service, she managed to strike up a conversation even while juggling drinks and snacks for an entire cabin of passengers. So what brings you to New York? She asked as she poured my ginger ale. Work. I'm a photographer. I've got an exhibition opening at a gallery in Chelsea. Her eyes lit up. Really? What kind of photography? Portrait work, mostly. Some street photography. I focus on capturing people in moments of genuine emotion. The unguarded stuff. That sounds incredible. I'd love to see your work sometime. The woman across the aisle cleared her throat. A not-so-subtle reminder that there were other passengers waiting. Maya flashed me an apologetic smile and moved on. But I found myself replaying that small interaction for the next hour. I wasn't naive. I knew that flight attendants were trained to be personable, to make passengers feel special. It was literally part of their job description. And yet, something about the way Maya looked at me felt different. Or maybe I was just projecting because it had been 8 months since my last relationship had imploded, and I was starved for any kind of connection. The flight leveled out, and I managed to pull out my laptop to review some of the photos I'd be exhibiting. I'd been working on this series for 2 years, portraits of queer elders. People who'd lived through decades of struggle and joy and change. Their faces told stories that demanded to be seen. I was so absorbed in the images that I didn't notice Maya had returned until she spoke. May I? I looked up to find her gesturing to the empty middle seat. The businessman had gotten up to use the restroom, and the cabin was quiet in that mid-flight lull where most passengers were dozing or absorbed in their own entertainment. Of course. She slid into the seat, careful to maintain a professional distance, but close enough that I could smell her perfume, something subtle and floral. These are stunning, she said, looking at the photo on my screen. It was Margaret, a 17-year-old woman who'd been with her partner for 52 years. The image caught her laughing at something off camera. Her whole face transformed by joy, her hand reaching for her wife's just outside the frame. Thank you. This is what I was telling you about the exhibition. The way you've captured her expression, you can see her whole life in her eyes. How long have you been doing this? We fell into an easy conversation. The kind where you lose track of time because you're both genuinely interested in what the other person has to say. I learned that Maya had been a flight attendant for 6 years, that she'd gotten into it after spending her early 20s feeling lost and directionless, that she loved the travel but was starting to think about what came next. She asked thoughtful questions about my photography, about the process, about why I'd chosen this particular project. I think we need these stories, I explained. We need to see the people who came before us, who fought for rights we sometimes take for granted. And I wanted to show them not as historical figures, but as living, breathing people who still have so much to say. That's beautiful, Maya said, and the way she looked at me made my breath catch. My grandmother was gay. She never got to live openly the way I. She stopped abruptly, and I saw color rise in her cheeks. The way you do. I supplied gently. She met my eyes, and there was a vulnerability there that hadn't been present before. Yeah, the way I do. The air between us suddenly felt charged with a different kind of electricity. Not the terrifying kind that came with turbulence, but something warm and promising and slightly terrifying in its own right. My grandmother lived with her roommate for 40 years. Maya continued. Everyone knew, but no one talked about it. She died 5 years ago, and at the funeral, her partner wasn't even mentioned in the obituary. It was like their whole life together had been erased. Without thinking, I reached out and covered her hand with mine. I'm so sorry. She turned her palm up, lacing our fingers together. And we sat like that for a moment that stretched and expanded and felt impossibly significant. "This is probably wildly inappropriate," she said quietly. I'm always friendly with passengers, but I don't. I know." I interrupted because I did know what she was trying to say. This wasn't standard flight attendant protocol. This was something else. The intercom chimed and we both jumped. Maya's colleague was calling for assistance with something in the back galley. She squeezed my hand once before letting go, and I immediately missed the warmth of her touch. "I have to. I know. Go." She stood, smoothing her uniform, and for a second, the professional mask slipped back into place. But before she walked away, she leaned down, her voice low enough that only I could hear. "We land in 2 hours. I know this is crazy, and you can absolutely say no. But would you maybe want to get coffee? After we land?" My heart was suddenly racing faster than it had during any of the turbulence. "I'd really like that." Her smile could have powered the entire plane. Okay, good. I'll give you my number before we land." I watched her walk away, and for the first time since boarding, forgot to be afraid of flying. The last 2 hours of the flight were a study in anticipation. I tried to focus on my work, on responding to emails from the gallery, on anything other than the fact that I'd just agreed to get coffee with the most captivating woman I'd met in years. But my mind kept wandering back to the way Maya's hand had felt in mine, the earnestness in her eyes when she'd talked about her grandmother, the electricity that had sparked between us. I'd had crushes before. I'd had relationships, some serious, some fleeting. But I couldn't remember the last time someone had made me feel this immediate sense of connection. It was exhilarating and terrifying in equal measure. The seatbelt sign came on as we began our descent into JFK. I felt the familiar flutter of anxiety, but it was muted now, overshadowed by a different kind of nervous energy. Maya was at the front of the cabin going through the landing procedures. But she caught my eye and smiled, and just like that, the anxiety diminished further. We hit some turbulence during the descent, nothing major, but enough to make my stomach drop. Before I could fully process the fear, Maya was there, her hand on my shoulder. "Almost there," she said, and her touch was grounding, real. A reminder that I was safe. The landing was smooth. And as we taxied to the gate, I felt an odd mixture of relief and disappointment. Relief that the flight was over, but disappointment that my excuse for being near Maya was about to end, as passengers began gathering their belongings. Maya appeared at my row one last time. She glanced around to make sure no one was paying attention, then quickly pressed a small piece of paper into my hand. "Text me when you're settled," she whispered. I nodded, clutching the paper like it was something precious. "I will. Have a wonderful exhibition, Jordan. Thank you for everything." She held my gaze for a moment longer, and I saw my own feelings reflected back at me: excitement, uncertainty, hope. Then she was moving on, helping passengers with their luggage. Being professional and efficient and wonderful, I've deplaned in a daze, barely noticing the crowd or the chaos of JFK. It wasn't until I was in a taxi heading to my hotel in Manhattan that I finally looked at the paper she'd given me. Along with her number, she'd written, "I don't usually do this, but I'm really glad I did." I found myself smiling like an idiot as the taxi merged into traffic. The city sprawled before me, full of possibility. And for the first time in months, I felt genuinely excited about something that had nothing to do with my work. I waited until I was checked into my hotel room before texting her. I must have typed and deleted a dozen different messages before finally settling on something simple. "Made it safely. Thank you for making the flight bearable. When are you free for that coffee?" Her response came surprisingly quickly. "I have a layover until tomorrow afternoon. Free this evening if you are. I know a place in the village. We made plans to meet at 7 at a cafe called The Grind that gave me 5 hours to unpack, shower, maybe have a minor breakdown about the fact that I was going on a date with someone I'd met hours ago on a plane, and change my outfit approximately 20 times. settled on dark jeans and a forest green button, down casual enough not to seem like I was trying too hard, but nice enough to show I cared. I arrived at the grind 10 minutes early, my nerves making punctuality impossible. The cafe was exactly the kind of place I would have chosen myself: warm lighting, mismatched furniture, walls covered in local art, and the rich smell of coffee and fresh pastries. I found a table near the window and tried not to watch the door, too, obviously. Maya arrived right at 7. And seeing her in civilian clothes, black jeans, and a soft gray sweater was almost startling. She'd let her hair down and it fell in waves past her shoulders. Without the uniform, without the professional role, she seemed simultaneously more relaxed and more nervous. "Hi," she said, sliding into the seat across from me. "Hi." We sat there grinning at each other like idiots until the barista came to take our order. Maya got a cappuccino, I ordered a latte, and we both requested slices of the lemon cake that the barista promised would change our lives. "So," Maya said once we were alone again, "this is either the most spontaneous thing I've ever done or the craziest. Why not both?" I suggested, and she laughed. "Fair point. I should tell you I don't usually ask passengers out. In fact, I've never asked a passenger out. There are no rules against it, technically, but it's generally considered unprofessional." "You can keep it professional if you want," I said, though the teasing tone made it clear I hoped she didn't want that at all. "I really don't want that," she admitted, and the frankness of it made my heart skip. "There was something about you, about the way you held my hand during that turbulence, like it was a lifeline. And then when you showed me your work and we started talking, I felt this connection. Tell me I'm not imagining it." "You're not imagining it," I assured her. "I felt it too. Feel it too." Our coffee arrived and we fell into conversation as easily as we had on the plane. Maybe more so now that we weren't navigating the constraints of her job. I learned that she'd grown up in Portland, that she had 2 younger brothers, that she'd wanted to be a dancer as a kid but had given it up after a knee injury in high school. She was thoughtful and funny, with a self-deprecating humor that I found endearing. "What about you?" she asked. "How did you get into photography?" I told her about growing up in a small town in Ohio, about being the only out kid in my high school, about how photography had become my way of seeing the world differently, of creating beauty and truth in places where others saw only the ordinary. "My mom found my first girlfriend's love letter when I was 16, I said. "She didn't speak to me for a month. My dad tried to play mediator, but he was just as uncomfortable with it. It took years before we could even talk about it, and even now it's something we carefully avoid discussing in detail." "I'm sorry," Maya said, reaching across the table to take my hand. "My parents were pretty amazing about it when I came out at 19, but I know that's not everyone's experience." The weird thing is, it made me more determined to tell stories about people like us, to show that our lives matter, that our love is real and valuable and worth documenting. "Your grandmother would have loved your work," I said. Her eyes grew shiny. "I think she would have. God, I wish I'd had the chance to really talk to her about her life before she died. To hear her stories, to tell her it was okay to share them. It's not too late to honor her story," I said. "If you ever want to talk about her and her partner, I'd love to photograph you. Not for the exhibition that ship has sailed, but for you. For your family. A way of reclaiming what was erased." Maya's grip on my hand tightened. "You would do that?" "Of course." We talked until the cafe staff started giving us pointed looks and stacking chairs on nearby tables. Looking at my phone, I was shocked to discover it was nearly 11. We'd been talking for 4 hours. "I should let you go," Maya said reluctantly. "You have your exhibition tomorrow." "Come with me," I blurted out. "To the opening. I know it's last minute and you probably have plans, but I'd love to," she interrupted. "What time?" 7. It's at the Morrison Gallery in Chelsea. "It's good, Sin. I'll be there." We stood, neither of us quite ready to say goodbye. Outside the cafe, the village was alive with people and light and possibility. "Can I walk you back to your hotel?" Maya asked. "I'd like that." We walked slowly, our shoulders occasionally brushing, finding excuses to extend the evening. Maya told me about her favorite cities, the strangest passengers she'd encountered, the time she'd had to deliver a baby mid-flight. I told her about the wedding I'd photographed where the couple had written vows that made everyone cry, including me. When we reached my hotel, we stood outside for a moment, the doorman discreetly ignoring us. "Thank you for tonight," Maya said. "I can't remember the last time I connected with someone like this." "Me neither." She leaned in, and for a moment I thought she might kiss me. But instead, she pressed her lips to my cheek, lingering there for a heartbeat longer than necessary. "See you tomorrow," she whispered. "I'm counting on it." I watched her walk away, and it took every ounce of willpower not to call her back. Instead, I floated up to my room, my cheek still warm from her kiss, my mind already fast-forwarding to tomorrow evening when I'd see her again. I barely slept. When I did drift off, I dreamed of flying, but, for once, the dreams weren't nightmares. I was soaring effortlessly, Maya's hand in mine. And we were both laughing at the impossible joy of it. The next day passed in a blur of last-minute preparations. The gallery director, Marcus, was a whirlwind of energy and neuroses, adjusting lights and repositioning frames and generally making everyone anxious. But when I stepped back and looked at my work on the walls, 20 large-format portraits of people who'd lived and loved and persisted, I felt a surge of pride. "These are powerful, Jordan," Marcus said, coming to stand beside me. "People are going to be moved." "I hope so. Is someone special coming tonight?" "You keep checking your phone." I felt heat rise to my cheeks. "Maybe." He grinned. "Good for you. You deserve to have some fun." By 7, the gallery was filling with people. Critics, collectors, friends, and strangers who'd seen the promotional materials and wanted to experience the work. I moved through the crowd answering questions, accepting congratulations, but my eyes kept drifting to the entrance. She arrived at 7:30, and I saw her before she saw me. She dressed up a simple black dress that somehow made her even more beautiful, her hair swept to one side. When our eyes met across the room, her face lit up with a smile that made everything else fade into background noise. I excused myself from the conversation I'd been having with a critic and made my way to her. "Oh, you came," I said, probably smiling like an idiot. "Of course I came. I wouldn't have missed this." She looked around at the photographs, and I saw the moment they truly registered. "Jordan, these are my God. These are extraordinary." I followed her as she moved from portrait to portrait, watching her face as she took in each image. She lingered longest at Margaret's photo, the one I'd shown her on the plane. "This is her, isn't it? The woman you showed me?" Margaret, 78, still madly in love with her wife after 52 years. "Tell me about her." So I did. I told her about photographing Margaret and Patricia in their home, about the way they still held hands constantly, about Patricia's joke that she'd tried to get rid of Margaret for decades, but the woman was persistent. I told her about Margaret's stories of their early years together, meeting in secret, living in fear, and eventually finding a community that accepted them. "That could have been my grandmother's story," Maya said quietly. "Should have been, still can be. The offer stands. I'd love to photograph you talking about her, preserving those memories." Before Maya could respond, Marcus appeared at my elbow. "Jordan, there's someone from the Times who wants to interview you. Can you spare 10 minutes? I looked at Maya apologetically. "I'm sorry I have to go," she said, squeezing my hand. "I'll look around. Take your time." The interview lasted longer than 10 minutes more, like 30, and when I finally extricated myself, I couldn't immediately spot Maya in the crowd. Panic fluttered in my chest for a moment before I found her in the back corner of the gallery, deep in conversation with an older woman I recognized as Patricia, Margaret's wife. As I approached, I heard Patricia saying, "And that's why these photographs matter so much. They're proof that we existed, that we loved, that our lives had meaning." "My grandmother and her partner, they never got that recognition," Maya was saying. "Their story died with them." Patricia reached out and patted Maya's hand. Then you keep it alive, dear. You tell their story. Make sure the young people know. I waited until their conversation concluded before joining them. Patricia gave me a warm hug, praised the exhibition again, and made her way to find Margaret. I turned to Maya. You okay? Yeah, she said, but her eyes were bright with unshed tears. More than okay. This exhibition, Jordan, you've created something really special here. These people's stories matter, and you've honored them so beautifully. The evening wound down slowly. As the crowd thinned, Marcus approached with a bottle of champagne. We sold 6 prints, he announced. And there's serious interest from collectors on several others, plus the Times interview. Jordan, I think this might be your breakthrough moment. I felt a surge of joy that had nothing to do with commercial success and everything to do with the knowledge that these stories would reach more people, that Margaret and Patricia and all the others would be seen and celebrated. We should celebrate, Marcus continued. Group of us are going to dinner. You should come. Bring your friend. I looked at Maya, raising an eyebrow in question. Actually, she said, I was hoping I could steal Jordan away, if that's okay. Marcus grinned knowingly. Say no more. You 2 kids have fun. Jordan will debrief tomorrow. Once the gallery emptied and Marcus locked up, Maya and I found ourselves standing on the Chelsea street, the city humming around us. Where do you want to go? I asked, honestly. I just want to walk and talk. Is that boring? That sounds perfect. We walked north through the city, eventually finding ourselves at the High Line. The elevated park was quieter at this hour, strings of lights creating an intimate atmosphere. We walked slowly, our hands occasionally brushing, both of us aware of the contact, but neither quite brave enough to take it further. Can I ask you something? Maya said eventually. Anything? When you were on that plane, terrified, holding my hand, what were you thinking about? I considered the question, honestly. At first I was just thinking about not dying. But then, when you held my hand, I was thinking about how strange it was that a stranger's touch could be so comforting. And then I saw your face, really looked at you, and I thought, this is going to be trouble. She laughed. Trouble. The good kind. The kind where you meet someone and immediately know they're going to be important somehow. I felt that too, she admitted. I kept finding excuses to check on you, to walk past your row. My colleague called me on it, actually. She said she'd never seen me pay that much attention to a passenger. And what did you tell her? That I was just being thorough. She grinned. She didn't buy it. We found a bench overlooking the city and sat down. From here, we could see the lights of Manhattan stretched out before us, endless and beautiful. I have to fly back to San Francisco tomorrow, Maya said quietly. My next shift is in 2 days. Reality crashed over me. In the whirlwind of the last 24 hours, I'd somehow forgotten that this whatever this was had an expiration date. Oh, but I've been thinking, she continued quickly. I have a week off after my next rotation. I could come back to New York if you wanted. If you're still going to be here, I'm here for another month at least. The gallery wants me available for potential buyers and interviews. We could see each other again. This doesn't have to be just a brief encounter. I turned to face her fully. Maya, I haven't been able to stop thinking about you since the moment you took my hand on that plane. If you're willing to try figuring out what this is, despite the distance and the complications, then yes, I absolutely want to see you again. She smiled, and it was like watching the sunrise. I'm willing. Good. This time, when she leaned in, she didn't stop at my cheek. Her lips met mine softly, tentatively, a question and an answer all at once. I kissed her back, my hand coming up to cup her face, and felt everything else fall away. There was only Maya, only this moment, only the perfect rightness of it. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathless. I should probably tell you, Maya said, her forehead resting against mine. I'm already halfway in love with you, and I know that's crazy after barely 2 days. But it's true. My heart felt too big for my chest. Then we're both crazy because I'm right there with you. We sat on that bench for hours, talking and kissing and planning. Maya told me about her dreams of maybe going back to school, of finding something more meaningful than serving drinks at 30,000 feet. I told her about the project I wanted to do next, photographing queer youth, showing their joy and resilience. We talked about San Francisco and New York, about the logistics of distance, about whether it was foolish to start something when we lived on opposite coasts. It's definitely foolish, Maya said, but I think I want to be foolish with you. I can work with foolish. The next morning, I took Maya to the airport. We'd spent the night together, nothing physical beyond kissing and holding each other, but intimate in ways that mattered more. She'd told me about her fear that she was wasting her life in a job that no longer fulfilled her. I'd told her about my own doubts, about imposter syndrome, about the fear that my work would never make the impact I hoped it would. Your work matters, she'd insisted. You're giving people back their stories, their dignity. That's not nothing, Jordan. Now, standing at the departure terminal, neither of us wanted to say goodbye. 2 weeks, Maya said. I'll be back in 2 weeks. I'll be here. You'll text me. Call me. I know you're busy, but every day, I promised. Multiple times a day if you can stand it. She kissed me once more, soft and sweet and full of promise. I'm really glad you were on my flight. Me too. Even with the turbulence. She laughed, touched my cheek, and then she was gone, disappearing into the security line. I stood there until I couldn't see her anymore, feeling the absence of her like a physical ache. The next 2 weeks were some of the hardest and best of my life. The exhibition continued to do well. I had several more interviews, sold additional prints, and even had interest from a publisher about doing a book. But underneath all the professional success, I was counting down the days until Maya would return. We texted constantly. Good morning messages and good night wishes and random observations throughout the day. She sent me photos from her flight's sunrises from 30,000 feet. Funny passenger moments, interesting cloud formations. I sent her images from around New York, moments I thought she'd appreciate. Our phone calls were even better. We'd talk for hours, falling into the same easy conversation we'd had in person. She told me about the doubts she was having about her job, about feeling stuck. I encouraged her to explore other options, to think about what would make her happy. What if I don't know what would make me happy? She asked one night, her voice small. Then we figure it out together, I said. You don't have to have all the answers right now. One night, about a week after she'd left, we were on the phone when she said, I'm thinking about quitting the airline. Yeah, I've been thinking about it for a while, but meeting you, it made me realize I don't want to keep putting my life on hold. I want to be in one place. I want to build something real. That's a big decision, I said carefully, not wanting to influence her too much. Where would you want to be? There was a pause, and then New York. I know it's fast, and maybe it's crazy. But I can't stop thinking about being there. Being near you, a heart was racing. I want that too. But Maya, you can't uproot your whole life for someone you've known for 2 weeks. I'm not, she said firmly. I'm doing it for me. You're a really good reason to choose New York over anywhere else. When would you do this? I have to give them notice. Probably 2 months. I have some savings, enough to get by while I figure out what's next. Jordan, tell me this isn't crazy. It's absolutely crazy, I said, and then I laughed. But I think it's the best kind of crazy. And I want you here. God, I want you here so much. She was quiet for a moment, and when she spoke again, her voice was thick with emotion. I've never felt like this about anyone, like I'd rearrange my whole life just to be near them. I feel the same way. The rest of our conversation was giddy with planning. Where she'd live, we agreed it was too soon to move in together. But we'd make sure she found something nearby, what she might want to do for work, all the things we'd do when she moved. By the time we hung up, it was 3 a.m. I was too excited to sleep. Maya's return to New York felt like coming home. I met her at the airport, and the moment I saw her coming through arrivals, everything felt right again. She dropped her bag and practically ran to me, and I caught her, lifting her slightly as we kissed. Hi, I said against her lips. Hi yourself. We'd planned her week off carefully. I wanted to show her the city, help her imagine what living here could be like. But I also wanted to give her time to explore on her own, to make sure this decision was really hers. The first day we played tourist. We went to the Statue of Liberty, walked across the Brooklyn Bridge, ate our way through Smorgasburg. Maya had a list of places she wanted to see, and we checked them off one by one, holding hands and stealing kisses, and generally being sickeningly cute. I could get used to this, she said, as we sat in Prospect Park, watching the sun set over the city. The city or this, I gestured between us. Both. Definitely both. That night, back at my hotel, things progressed beyond kissing for the first time. It was slow and tender and earth-shaking, a physical expression of everything we'd been building between us. Afterward, lying tangled together, Maya traced patterns on my shoulder. I gave my notice today, she said quietly. I pulled back slightly to look at her face. You did. She nodded, and I could see both excitement and nervousness in her eyes. 2 months. That's how long I have left. And then I'm officially unemployed in New York City with no plan. You have a plan? I corrected. You're going to figure out what makes you happy. And you have me. I have you, she repeated, smiling. That still feels surreal. Good surreal or bad surreal? The best surreal. The rest of her week in New York was spent apartment hunting. We looked at tiny studios in the Village, slightly bigger places in Brooklyn, anything in her price range. It was daunting. New York real estate was its own special kind of nightmare, but Maya approached it with determination. This is really happening, she said, as we left yet another viewing. I'm really doing this, having second thoughts. Not even for a second. Are you? I mean, I know this is a lot. We barely know each other, and I'm moving across the country. I stopped walking and turned to face her. Maya, I've never been more sure of anything. Yes, it's fast. Yes, it's unconventional. But I don't care. I want this. I want you. She kissed me right there on the sidewalk, and I didn't care who saw. On her last night before flying back to San Francisco, we went back to the grind. The cafe where we'd had our first date. It felt full circle somehow, sitting at the same table, drinking the same coffee, but everything had changed. I'm terrified, Maya admitted, of leaving my job, of moving, of everything changing. Change is terrifying, I agreed. But sometimes it's necessary. And you won't be doing it alone, promise. I promise. We're in this together. The next 2 months were a study in patience and longing. Maya worked her final flights while simultaneously trying to pack up her life in San Francisco. I continued with the exhibition and started preliminary work on my next project. We video called every night, sometimes just leaving the call running while we did our separate tasks, creating a sense of togetherness despite the distance. Maya found an apartment, small 1-bedroom in Brooklyn that was just within her budget. I'd gone to see it for her via video call, and while it was tiny, it had good light and a working kitchen and was only a 30-minute subway ride from where I was staying in Manhattan. It's perfect, she declared. And I'd helped her navigate the nightmare of New York. Rental applications remotely. Her last day as a flight attendant was bittersweet. She sent me photos of her colleagues throwing her a small party. Their messages of good luck and confusion about why she was leaving. One photo showed her in uniform one last time, and she captioned it, "Last flight. Next stop, new life." I met her at JFK when she arrived with all her worldly possessions, which turned out to be just 4 large suitcases and 2 carry-ons. She'd sold or donated everything else. Travel light, right? She joked as we loaded everything into a taxi. Her apartment was empty when we arrived, just bare walls and old hardwood floors. But Maya walked through it with a smile on her face. "It's really mine," she said. "My first place in New York. Our first place in New York." I corrected, and she raised an eyebrow. Not like officially ours. You need your own space. But I plan on spending a lot of time here, if that's okay. She wrapped her arms around my neck. That's more than okay. We spent the next week getting her settled. We assembled furniture from IKEA, hung curtains, arranged and rearranged her few belongings until the space felt like home. My friends came by to help and to meet Maya, and I loved watching her charm them effortlessly. "She's great," my best friend Aisha told me when Maya was in the other room. "But Jordan, are you sure about this? I mean, I'm happy for you, but it's so fast." "I know how it looks," I said. "But Aisha, I've never felt like this about anyone. She makes me want to be braver, and I'm happy for you. Just be careful, okay? Guard your heart a little." But that was the thing, I didn't want to guard my heart. Not with Maya. I wanted to give it to her freely and trust that she'd handle it with care. Maya started looking for work. But she was also taking time to figure out what she actually wanted to do. She took an art history class at the community college, volunteered at a youth center, tried her hand at writing. She was exploring, and I loved watching her discover new parts of herself. I never had time for this before. She told me one evening as we cooked dinner together in her tiny kitchen. I was always rushing to the next flight, the next city. I never stopped to ask what I actually wanted. What do you want?" She thought about it, stirring the pasta sauce. "I think I want to work with people. Something meaningful. Maybe social work. Or teaching. I don't know yet, but I'll figure it out." "You will?" I said, kissing her temple. "And I'll be here while you do." 3 months into Maya living in New York, we hit our first real rough patch. My exhibition had closed, and I was deep in the planning stages of my next project. I'd secured funding to photograph queer youth across the country, which meant I'd need to travel extensively for the next 6 months. "So you'll be gone," Maya said when I told her. And I heard the hurt in her voice. "Not constantly. I'll be back between shoots. And you could come with me sometimes, Jordan. I just moved here. I'm trying to build a life. I can't just pick up and travel with you whenever." "I know. I'm sorry. This project is important to me. I know it is. And I want you to do it. She paused, and I saw her struggling with her emotions. "I moved across the country to be with you, and now you're leaving." The words hit me like a physical blow. "That's not fair. You said you moved for yourself." "I did. But that doesn't mean it doesn't hurt that you're leaving." So we fought, really fought, for the first time. Voices were raised, old insecurities surfaced, and we both said things we didn't quite mean. I ended up leaving her apartment that night. And we didn't talk for 2 days. It was Aisha who finally knocked sense into me. "You're both scared," she said. "Maya's scared you're going to realize this was a mistake and she have uprooted her life for nothing. You're scared of losing yourself in the relationship and giving up your work. But here's the thing, you both need to actually talk about it instead of letting fear drive the conversation." She was right. I went to Maya's apartment with flowers and an apology. "Sorry," I said when she opened the door. "I should have talked to you about the project before I accepted it. I should have considered how it would affect us." "Sorry too," she said, letting me in. "I was unfair. Your work is important, and I don't want to be the person who holds you back from it." We sat on her couch, and I took her hands in mine. "I don't want to lose you," I said, "but I also don't want to lose myself. Is there a way we can have both?" "I think so," she said. "But we have to be honest with each other. About what we need, about when we're scared, about all of it. So what do you need?" She thought about it. "I need to know that when you're gone, you're coming back. I need regular communication, even if it's just texts. And I need you to be present when you are here, not physically here, but mentally somewhere else." "I can do that. All of that. What else?" "I need you to believe that I'm here for the long haul. That I didn't make a mistake moving here. Because, Jordan, I love you, and that terrifies me. But it's true." My breath caught. We hadn't said those words yet, had been dancing around them for months. "I love you too," I said. "So much it scares me sometimes." We kissed, and it felt like sealing a promise. We weren't perfect, and we'd have more fights and more moments of doubt. But we'd figure it out together. My project took me to 12 cities over 6 months. Maya came with me twice to Los Angeles and to New Orleans, and those trips were some of my favorite memories. Watching her experience new places, seeing her through the eyes of the young people. I was photographing who immediately gravitated to her warmth and authenticity. But mostly, we learned how to be apart while staying connected. We had video call dates where we'd cook the same meal in our respective kitchens and eat together. We sent each other care packages full of silly gifts and heartfelt letters. And when I came home between trips, we made every moment count. Maya had figured out what she wanted to do. She'd enrolled in a social work program and was thriving. She'd also started a support group for LGBTQ+ young adults, using her grandmother's story as inspiration. Watching her come into her own was one of the greatest joys of my life. Now, 1 year after she'd moved to New York, we were back on a plane together. Maya had wanted to face her fears not of flying, but of returning to the place where this had all started. We were going to San Francisco so she could introduce me to her family. As the plane took off, I reached for her hand automatically. "How are you doing?" she asked, squeezing my fingers. You know what? I'm okay. And I was. Flying still wasn't my favorite thing, but with Maya beside me, the fear had diminished to something manageable. She'd taught me that sometimes the scary things were worth it, that taking risks could lead to the most beautiful outcomes. "I'm proud of you," she said, "for not having a panic attack, for being brave, for taking a chance on me, on us." "Best decision I ever made," I said, and meant it. The flight was smooth, uneventful. Nothing like that first turbulent journey where we'd met. But as we crossed the country, our hands clasped together. I thought about how sometimes turbulence, the literal and metaphorical, kindly do exactly where you needed to be. Maya fell asleep against my shoulder somewhere over Nevada, and I carefully took out my phone and snapped a photo. Not for work, not for any project, but just for us. A moment captured her peaceful face, my hand in hers. The clouds outside the window. I thought about the Jordan who'd boarded that flight a year ago, terrified and alone, convinced that flying was the worst thing in the world. I wished I could tell her that yes, there would be turbulence. But there would also be someone who'd refuse to let go of her hand. Someone who'd make her believe in love at first flight, in taking chances, in building something real despite all the reasons it shouldn't work. When we landed in San Francisco, Maya woke up with a start. "We're here," she asked groggily. "We're here." She smiled at me. That same smile that had knocked the breath out of me a year ago. And I knew with absolute certainty that I wanted to see that smile every day for the rest of my life. "Ready to meet the family?" she asked. "With you, I'm ready for anything." We gathered our bags and made our way off the plane. As we walked through the terminal, Maya's hand firmly in mine. I sent up a silent thank you to the universe, to fate, to whatever forces had put me on that specific flight at that specific moment. Sometimes the most terrifying journeys lead to the most beautiful destinations. Sometimes the person who refuses to let go of your hand becomes the person you never want to let go of. And sometimes love really does happen at 30,000 feet. The gallery was packed, just like it had been 2 years ago. But this time the photographs on the walls were different. They showed Maya's grandmother, Grace, and her partner, Helen, recreated through Maya's memories and old photographs I'd carefully restored and reimagined. But more than that, the exhibition showed Maya her self-portraits of her telling her grandmother's story, images of the support group she'd started, photographs of the young people whose lives she was touching every day. I called it the stories we keep. Maya stood beside me, looking at a large portrait of herself, holding a photograph of Grace and Helen in the image. Her eyes were full of love and loss and determination. "She would have loved this," Maya said softly. "She would have loved you," I corrected. "Would have been so proud of the person you've become." We'd moved in together 6 months ago, finally ready to fully merge our lives. The apartment was bigger than Maya's first place, but still cozy, filled with both our belongings and the life we were building together. Marcus approached us, grinning. "Jordan, this might be your best work yet. The emotional depth, the way you've woven past and present together, it's extraordinary." "It's all Maya," I said. "Her story, her strength. I just captured it." After Marcus walked away, Maya turned to me. "Can we talk for a second? Outside?" My stomach flipped nervously, but I followed her out to the gallery's small courtyard. The evening was warm and the city hummed around us. "Is everything okay?" I asked. "Everything's perfect," she said. "That's actually what I wanted to talk about. Jordan, these past 2 years have been the happiest of my life. You've supported every crazy dream I've had, celebrated every success, held me through every doubt. You've made me believe in love in a way I never thought possible." My heart was pounding now, because I recognized the tone in her voice, serious, nervous, full of emotion. That day on the plane, when you grabbed my hand during that turbulence, I thought I was just doing my job. I had no idea you were about to change my entire life. But you did. You made me want to be braver, to build something real, to stop running and start living. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small box, and my breath caught. "Maya, Jordan Reese," she said, opening the box to reveal a simple, elegant ring. "Will you marry me?" I laughed through sudden tears, pulling her close. "Yes, God, yes. 1,000 times yes." She slipped the ring on my finger, and we kissed as the city lights twinkled around us, as life carried on in its beautiful, chaotic way, as everything felt exactly right. "I love you," I whispered against her lips. "I love you too, my brave, beautiful, amazing partner." We stayed in that courtyard for a while longer, wrapped in each other's arms, already planning our future together. Eventually, we'd have to go back inside to face the crowd and the questions and the celebration. But for now, it was just us. Two people who'd found each other in the most unlikely of places. I thought about that scared woman on the plane, gripping the armrests, convinced that flying was the worst thing in the world. I wished I could tell her not to be afraid. That yes, there would be turbulence in the air and in life, but there would also be a woman with warm, brown eyes who would refuse to let go of her hand. A woman who would teach her that the scariest things often led to the greatest joys. Love at first flight. It sounded like something from a romantic movie too good to be true. But standing there in that courtyard, wearing Maya's ring, planning a life together, I knew it was real. Sometimes you just have to be brave enough to hold on. And sometimes, the person who won't let go becomes the person you never want to fly without. The morning after the proposal, I woke up to find Maya already awake, sitting cross-legged on the bed with her laptop, furiously typing. "What are you doing?" I asked, my voice still rough with sleep. She looked up, her face radiant. "Making lists. We need to plan a wedding, Jordan. Do you know how much goes into planning a wedding?" I laughed, pulling her back down beside me. "We have time. We don't have to figure it all out this morning." "But I want to," she said, though she settled into my arms. "I've been thinking about this for months, actually. I knew I wanted to propose. I just had to wait for the right moment." "Months." I raised an eyebrow. "And you didn't tell me?" "I wanted it to be a surprise." Were you surprised?" "Completely. In the best possible way." I held up my hand, watching the ring catch the morning light. "I love it. I love you. I love you too." Now, about the wedding, I was thinking something small. Just our closest friends and family. Maybe somewhere meaningful to us. Over the next few weeks, wedding planning became our favorite evening activity. We'd curl up on the couch with wine and notebooks, throwing out ideas, debating details, laughing at how seriously we were taking decisions about napkin colors and playlist songs. "What about a destination wedding?" Maya suggested one night. "Somewhere neither of us has been before, so we can discover it together." Or I countered, "What about Portland, where you grew up? We could have it at that park you've told me about, the one where you used to go with your grandmother." Maya's eyes filled with tears. "Washington Park. If your family would be okay with it? I just thought it would be a way of including Grace in the day, even though she can't be there." She kissed me deeply. "That's perfect. That's absolutely perfect." But before we could get married, Maya insisted we needed to tell our families properly. We'd already told them over the phone, of course, to immediate excitement and congratulations. But Maya wanted to visit them in person to celebrate properly. My parents are already planning an engagement party, she warned me. They're going to go overboard. I apologize in advance. I can handle overboard, I assured her. What I wasn't prepared for was just how much Maya's family would embrace me. Her parents, Linda and Robert, treated me like I'd always been part of the family. Her brothers ribbed me good-naturedly about stealing their sister away to the East Coast. And her great-aunt Margaret Grace's sister, who'd been there for all of it, pulled me aside at one point during the party. You know, she said, her weathered hand gripping mine, Grace would have loved you. She always worried that Maya would feel like she had to hide who she was, the way Grace did. But here you are, both of you, planning a wedding, living openly. It's everything she would have wanted for her granddaughter. I wish I could have met her, I said honestly. In a way, you have. You've told her story. You've made sure she isn't forgotten. That's a gift, Jordan. Don't underestimate what you've given our family. The visit to my parents in Ohio was more complicated. They'd come a long way since that difficult coming-out conversation when I was 16. But there was still an awkwardness, a careful politeness that never quite felt natural. So, you're really getting married, my mom said. Her tone neutral as we sat in their living room. Maya had diplomatically decided to take a walk, giving us time to talk. We are. Next June, and I'd really like you both to be there. My parents exchanged a look. One of those married couple telepathic conversations. Course, we'll be there, my dad said finally. You're our daughter. But, I prompted because I could hear the unspoken word. My mom sighed. It's not a but exactly. We're happy, you're happy, Jordan. We are. It's just this isn't the life we imagined for you. I know, but it's the life I want. Maya is the person I want. And I need to know that you can accept that. Really accept it, not just tolerate it. There was a long silence. Then my mom reached over and took my hand. We're trying, she said. We might not always get it right, and we might say the wrong things sometimes, but we do love you. And if Maya makes you happy, then we're happy for you. It wasn't a perfect reconciliation. There were still gaps, still things left unsaid. But it was progress, and for now, that was enough. When Maya came back from her walk, my parents invited her to stay for dinner. It was stilted at first, but Maya had a gift for putting people at ease. By the end of the evening, my mom was showing her embarrassing childhood photos of me, and my dad was sharing stories about teaching me to ride a bike. They're trying, Maya said later as we drove back to the airport. I know it's not everything you want, but they're trying. That matters. When did you become so wise? I've always been wise. You just got distracted by my devastating good looks. I laughed, lacing my fingers through hers as I drove. True, very true. June arrived faster than seemed possible. We'd spent months planning every detail, but now that the day was actually here, I felt remarkably calm. Maybe it was because I knew with absolute certainty that this was right. Or maybe it was because Maya kept sneaking into my getting ready room to kiss me, despite Aisha's insistence that it was bad luck to see each other before the ceremony. There's no such thing as bad luck, Maya insisted, and I'm not spending one more minute away from my bride-to-be than absolutely necessary. We'd chosen to get ready in the same, building a historic lodge overlooking Portland's Washington Park. The ceremony would take place in the Rose Garden, the same place where Grace and Helen used to take young Maya to feed the ducks and talk about life. I was wearing a fitted cream suit with a silk camisole underneath. Maya had chosen a flowing white dress with delicate lace sleeves that made her look like something out of a fairy tale. When I finally saw her in it, walking down the makeshift aisle with her father, I actually forgot to breathe. The ceremony itself was intimate, just 40 people. Our closest friends and family gathered among the roses on a perfect June afternoon. My friend Sarah, who'd become ordained specifically for this occasion, officiated with warmth and humor. Love, Sarah said, is the act of seeing someone fully and choosing them anyway. Choosing them because of who they are, not despite it. Jordan and Maya have spent the last 2.5 years choosing each other every single day. Through distance and doubt, through fear and uncertainty. Today, they're making that choice permanent. We'd written our own vows. And when it was time to share them, I pulled out the paper I'd been carrying in my pocket. Now, slightly wrinkled from nervous handling, Maya, I began, my voice shaking slightly when I got on that plane 2.5 years ago. I was convinced it was going to be the worst flight of my life. And in a way, it changed my life completely, just not in the way I expected. You held my hand during turbulence, and you haven't let go since. You've taught me that being brave doesn't mean not being afraid. It means doing the scary thing anyway, because something beautiful waits on the other side. You've shown me what it means to build a life with intention, with purpose, with love. I promise to hold your hand through every turbulence we face. I promise to be your safe place to land. I promise to love you fiercely and tenderly, in the ordinary moments and the extraordinary ones. For all the days we have together. Maya was crying, and so was I. And so were at least half the guests. When it was her turn, Maya didn't pull out any paper. She just took both my hands and spoke from her heart. Jordan, I spent the first 28 years of my life floating, moving from place to place, never quite landing anywhere, never quite sure what I was searching for. And then I met you, and suddenly everything made sense. You were what I've been searching for, someone who saw me completely, who challenged me to be braver and better, who made me want to stop running and start building. You've given me roots and wings, a home and an adventure, certainty and endless possibility. I promise to be your partner in every sense of the word. I promise to photograph life's beautiful moments with you and for you. I promise to choose you every single day, in every single way, for the rest of our lives. Sarah had to wait a moment for us both to stop crying before she could continue. By the power vested in me by the state of Oregon, and more importantly by the love and support of everyone gathered here, I now pronounce you married. Jordan, my you, may kiss your bride. The kiss was soft and sweet and perfect, accompanied by cheers and applause from our guests. When we finally broke apart, both grinning like idiots. Sarah announced, "Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Jordan and Maya Rishchun. We'd both decided to hyphenate our last names. It felt like the right symbol, not one of us absorbing the other, but both of us creating something new together. The reception was exactly what we'd want, casual and joyful, full of good food and better company. There was dancing and toasts, laughter and happy tears. Maya's grand-aunt Margaret gave a speech about Grace and Helen, about how proud they would have been, that had everyone reaching for tissues. But my favorite moment came late in the evening. When Maya and I snuck away from the party for a few minutes, we walked to the edge of the park where we could see the city lights of Portland twinkling below. "How are you feeling, Mrs. Rishchun?" Maya asked, wrapping her arms around me from behind. "Like the luckiest person alive, Mrs. Rishchun," I replied, leaning back into her embrace. "We did it. We did. We're married. We're married," she repeated, and I could hear the wonder in her voice. "I'm married to the most incredible woman I've ever met. Funny? I was just thinking the same thing about you." We stood there for a while, just holding each other, watching the city. In the distance, we could hear music and laughter from our reception. Our friends and family were celebrating our love, and it felt like the most natural thing in the world. "Jordan," Maya said softly. "Yeah, thank you for being afraid of flying." I laughed, turning in her arms to face her. "That's an odd thing to be grateful for. If you hadn't been scared, you wouldn't have grabbed my hand. And if you hadn't grabbed my hand, we wouldn't be here. I guess fear has its uses after all." "Sometimes," she agreed. "The things that scare us the most lead us exactly where we need to be." We kissed again, slower this time, savoring the moment. Tomorrow, we'd fly to Greece for our honeymoon, a 2-week adventure exploring islands and ancient ruins. But tonight, we were exactly where we needed to be. Hand in hand, we walked back to our reception, back to our people, back to the beginning of our forever. The honeymoon was everything we dreamed. Lazy mornings in Santorini, exploring the ruins in Athens, swimming in impossibly blue water in Crete. But as wonderful as it was, I found myself excited to get back to New York, to our apartment, to the life we were building together. Is it weird that I'm homesick? Maya asked as we packed our bags on the last day. We're literally in paradise, and I can't wait to get back to our tiny apartment and our ridiculous New York rent. Not weird at all. That's how you know you found home, when you can't wait to get back to it. The flight home was smooth, and for once, I didn't feel even a flutter of anxiety. Maya noticed, squeezing my hand. "Look at you, frequent flyer. I have a good co-pilot," I said, kissing her cheek. Back in New York, we fell into married life with surprising ease. The dynamic between us didn't change. Dramatically, we'd been living together for months already, but there was a deepness to it now, a sense of permanence that felt both comfortable and thrilling. Maya had started her master's degree in social work and was thriving. She was doing her field placement at an LGBTQ+ youth center, working with teenagers who were navigating their identities, their families, their fears. She came home with stories that broke her heart and filled it in equal measure. "There's this girl," she told me one evening, 17, just came out to her parents and they kicked her out. "She's been sleeping on friends' couches, still going to school somehow, still maintaining a 4.0. Her resilience is incredible. But Jordan, she shouldn't have to be that resilient. She should be able to just be a kid. What can we do?" Maya looked at me and I saw the wheels turning. "Actually, I've been thinking about that. What if we became foster parents? Not now, we're too newly married, but eventually. There are so many LGBTQ+ youth who need safe homes, people who understand them." "I love that idea," I said. "Let's do it. When we're ready, let's do it." My own work was evolving too. The youth photography project had been published as a book, and it was getting real attention. I was being invited to speak at conferences, teach workshops, exhibit at galleries across the country. It was more success than I'd ever imagined. But with success came difficult decisions. I was offered a position as artist in residence at a prestigious university in California. A year-long appointment with a generous salary and complete creative freedom. "You should take it," Maya said immediately when I told her about the offer. "It's in California for a whole year. So we'll figure it out. Jordan, this is an incredible opportunity. You can't turn it down because of logistics. What about your program, your work? You can't just drop everything and move to California for a year." She bit her lip, and I could see her working through the problem. "What if we did long distance for the year? It's not ideal, but we've done it before. And maybe I could spend summers there, or you could come back for long weekends." "Maya, we just got married. I don't want to spend our first year of marriage apart. Neither do I. But I also don't want you to resent me for making you turn down your dream job." We spent weeks discussing it, weighing options, both of us trying to find a solution that didn't require sacrifice from either of us. In the end, we came up with a compromise. I'd take the residency, but only for a semester instead of the full year. Maya would spend 2 weeks with me at the start, getting me settled. And we'd see each other at least twice a month, alternating who flew where. "It's going to be hard," I warned her. "We've done hard before," she replied. "We can do it again." The hardest part about leaving for California wasn't the flying or the distance, was seeing Maya's face trying to stay brave. As we said goodbye at JFK, "It's only 3 months," she said, her voice determinedly cheerful. "That's nothing. Barely any time at all." "Right? Nothing," I agreed, though my throat was tight with unshed tears. "And you're going to do amazing work out there. I'm so proud of you, Jordan. I'm going to miss you so much. I'm going to miss you too. But we'll video call every night and I'll come visit in 6 weeks. And before you know it, you'll be back home." The residency was incredibly daily kind of creative challenge I needed. I was working with students who were hungry to learn, creating new work that pushed my boundaries, collaborating with other artists. But every evening when I'd video call Maya and see her in our apartment without me, I felt the absence like a physical ache. "Tell me about your day" became our ritual. We'd share every detail, keeping each other tethered to our respective lives. Maya told me about her clients, her classes, her friends. I told her about my students, my projects. It's a beautiful California coastline that couldn't quite compete with having her beside me. 3 weeks down, Maya said one night, 9 to go. "It's counting," I joked. Me, I'm definitely counting. Her visit at the 6-week mark was both wonderful and difficult. Having her there in my temporary apartment near campus reminded me of everything I was missing. We spent the 2 weeks she was there making the most of every moment exploring San Francisco, driving down the coast, spending long mornings in bed just talking. I don't want you to leave, I said on her last morning there. I don't want to leave either. But Jordan, only 6 more weeks. You can do this. We can do this. After she left, the apartment felt unbearably empty. I threw myself into work, staying late at the studio, taking on extra projects, anything to avoid the quiet evenings alone. My students noticed. Professor Reeschun, one of them, asked after class, "Are you okay? You seem different lately." I considered brushing it off, but something about her earnest concern made me honest.